Every morning, the countdown begins for the markets with meticulous research and analysis designed to help you capitalize on the trading day. Beaming live from the CNBC TV 18 Motilal Oswal studio.
Good morning. You're with us here on a fresh new edition of Bazaar Morning Call. Wednesday morning, middle of the week, we're coming to you live from the CNBC TV 18 Motilal Oswal studios. I'm Prashant. With me, my colleagues Surabhi and Nigel. Guys, good morning.
Hi, morning folks. At exactly 11:31 IST last night, I checked all possible, sources and social media. It was
what were you doing awake, Surabhi?
I was just waiting for it. This, almost at the stroke of midnight hour kind of new wave that was about to sweep us.
The time that we start is like early morning.
You don't lose your sleep on all these things. Wake up in the morning
out of
headlines.
Curiosity. I like curiosity. But anyway, we have some new posts on social media, but nothing very big or sweeping in terms of more sanctions or tariffs.
Absolutely. It's more of the same in a way, right? Reiterating what's been said before. So I'll just take it from the top in terms of stuff that you need to know. The big one here locally, and I think markets will remain, and specific stock sectors, whatever, will remain a little excited, hopeful, bid on the back of the GST Council meeting, which of course is starting today and runs tomorrow. We'll know what time we get the I think it should be maybe post-market hours tomorrow. Usually these things run late. This basically a third and the fourth is when when the council meeting is taking place. And we'll get you updates from Delhi. Our reporters are all on the ground. Of course, we've been telling you the broad structure in terms of what the GST GOM is thinking on the lines of rate cuts, rationalization, etc. on the agenda. And a fair bit there. So we'll come to that. U.S. market saw a bit of a risk-off, and S&P was down 0.69. Nasdaq was down about 0.82% as well. And AI-related, AI stocks, the big mega tech stocks, are deflating a little bit at the margin. And is that AI fatigue, or is it concern around incremental benefits of AI? It's an old question. How much money is being pumped into AI and what's coming out in terms of, the spending? Everybody, of course, has gone absolutely berserk, putting hundreds of billions of dollars into the technology and, of course, the allied infrastructure. But markets finally are taking a bit of a breather. So far, it looks like a breather. Now, the VIX was up 9%, 17.5. Gold rose to another record high to, $3,600. So one-way kind of move. Silver, of course, has also been lagging, but doing well recently. The bond market, 10-year was up 4 basis points. The dollar saw a bit of a move, 0.65 to 98.4. I don't think there was any big reason for the move in the dollar. It started actually during Asia hours, and then it sort of continued into the US session as well. You had two data points, US PMI and ISM manufacturing, which came through. Services is later. That's a more important one. Both were mixed, but kind of sort of slightly weakish. After hours, Google, Alphabet, the stock is up 7%. In after-hours trading, Apple is up 6%. A federal US judge ruled that Google isn't required to sell its Chrome web browser. So, immediate impact on Alphabet, of course, but I think, Apple is also fighting a fair bit of antitrust issues in the US and elsewhere as well. So that also got a bit of a lift. So those are big names, and if this lasts as the US session opens, it'll show up in terms of indices. With regards to President Trump, he was asked whether he's considering lower tariffs on India, and I think he said no. And we'll play the soundbite out in a bit as well. He also said that he's going to ask the Supreme Court to expedite the ruling on tariffs after the lower appeals court ruled the tariffs 7-4 illegal. So, but he's got to, it's the administration's need to now go to the Supreme Court to challenge the appeals court. So that's basically what's happening. There's nothing earth-shattering in that statement. I'll just tie in the levels here. Yesterday was a little disappointing for bulls because you had a nice move higher. The Nifty crossed the 20-day moving average. Actually, we went above the 20-day by about 50-60 points, but then sold off. So at the daily averages is where the market seems to be finding a bit of resistance. Yesterday's high is 24,756. That's the first resistance level. and the low of 24,404 becomes the support, has been the support for a while. For the Nifty Bank, it touched the upper Bollinger Band and then sold off from there. The support here for the Nifty Bank is 53,483 and 52,895, levels we've put out earlier as well. And the resistance becomes yesterday's high, the first at least, which is 54,160. So those are levels. GIFT Nifty will give you a quick sense of how we're likely to start. It's about 50 points lower. How is the F&O setup looking? Nigel has walked across to that setup. Nigel, over to you.
Well, yesterday we did come off from around the 20 DMA on the Nifty, and it was looking quite good till around noon, till around 1 p.m. odd, and then we lost our way. So there could be an element of weekly expiry as well that did play out yesterday, and we crashed into the 20 DMA, and we did pull back from there. If you look at the institutional flows, well, the net institutional numbers were positive, but just keep in mind the FI participation still is not at what we have seen in the recent past, so it's still a little bit lower. Today will be a crucial day because in all probability that FI participation will be back to around 100%. What did they do in the F&O market, though? In yesterday's trading session, there was some shorting that we saw on the Nifty Bank, and that's the easier index to short from a bearish perspective because that continues to underperform, and yesterday was no different. So though on the Nifty we saw some unwinding, but on the Nifty Bank there was some short build-up. And if you just tie in with what the FIs did in yesterday's trading session, they added short positions. 5,000 contracts is what they added. The short positioning has moved to around 92%. Now, those short positions are moving to those extreme levels. And that could be one of the reasons, actually, that India could outperform in this month itself. That's the month of September, when normally global equity markets are a little under the weather. The FI short positioning is reaching those levels where, in fact, we have seen that they reach their extreme level. And because of that, those shorts in the system keep the markets afloat. So we'll see how that goes. Well, you're looking at two strikes, 24,700 call, fair bit of open interest build up, 24,500 put as well. On both those two, there was close to around 20 lakh shares getting added out there. And the premium at around 40 and around 90 rupees odd. Well, moving to the levels then that we're looking at. The Nifty, important mark you wanted to defend on the downside, is around 24,400. Crucial mark on the downside, while the resistance level is in line with yesterday's high, in line with around the 20 DMA. Though that's the crucial, both those two are the goalposts that you're looking at on the Nifty. On the Nifty Bank, well, that's been the relative underperformer over the last week or so, and the last month as well. Well, important to see that it defends this 200 DMA. That's around 1.5% away from current levels, but that's the line in the sand. You don't want the Nifty Bank to break that mark. Moving to stocks in focus, well, I'm looking at two stocks. We had TBO Tech that came out, with an acquisition. They're acquiring Classic Vacations for around $125 million. It adds close to around 50% to the revenues that they delivered last year. And if you look at the EBITDA number, well, a third of that because margins are relatively lower. It looks accretive at the first look at it, so I'll keep an eye out on this stock. And the second stock that I'm looking at is FirstCry, or BrainBees, as it's commonly known. The stock has come off drastically. It's nearly half of what it was at its peak. But in yesterday's trading session, you had a fair bit of delivery-based buying in trade in percentage terms as well as in absolute volumes. That's the delivery-based buying that we saw in yesterday's trading session. So I'll keep an eye out on this one as well.
Okay, all right. That's from the F&O space and the F&O desk, all the cues coming in. By the way, across Asia, the biggest headlines are once again political this morning because of this, pomp and show at the military parade that's going on in China. And a lot of statements have come in with Donald Trump saying that China is conspiring against the U.S. And, the Chinese leadership also making some statements at that particular event, that big parade that's ongoing. Markets for the time being are absolutely flat. Not too much after the slide that we saw on Wall Street. Yeah, those are the visuals that I'm talking about. So the North Korean leader, Vladimir Putin, the Chinese leadership, all of them there. It's a grand parade, once in a decade. I think the event is happening after a decade. And obviously, Washington is watching every single bit of it. And that's when the quote came, please give my warmest regards to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un as you conspire against the USA. Anyway, let's quickly move on and now talk about what's pertinent to us. And that is the US president's latest statement on tariffs with respect to India. He said that the two countries got along very well, but also listed out why India was being charged a higher amount of tariff.
We get along with India very well, but India has, you have to understand, for many years it was a one-sided relationship. Only now, since I came along, and because of the power that we have with tariffs, India was charging us tremendous tariffs, about the highest in the world. They were about the highest in the world, number one. And we, therefore, weren't doing much business with India, but they were doing business with us because we weren't charging them. Foolishly, we weren't charging them. So they would send in massive, everything they made, they'd send it in, pour it into our country. Therefore, it wouldn't be made here, which is a negative. But we would not send in anything because they were charging us 100% tariffs. And, I'll give you an example. Harley-Davidson. Harley-Davidson couldn't sell into India. There was a 200% tariff on a motorcycle. So what happens? Harley-Davidson went to India and built a motorcycle plant. And now they don't have to pay tariffs. Same thing as us.
Okay, well, separately, he also was asked whether he's considering lower tariffs in India, and there was a one-word answer. He said no. Anyway, U.S. appeals court last week had ruled against Trump's tariffs, called them illegal. The Trump administration has to go to the Supreme Court, and here's Trump himself essentially saying that they're going to do it and expedite a ruling on his tariffs.
Other countries use tariffs on us for years, and we never did. I did a lot during my first term, but then we had COVID and we had to focus on other things. You couldn't be tariffing Italy, Spain, France, as they were dying by the thousands and millions. It's a very important decision. And frankly, if they make the wrong decision, it would be a devastation for our country. We've taken in trillions of dollars. And by the way, all these countries signed agreements, as an example. They're all happy. Everybody's happy. But some whack job put in a lawsuit, and now it's going to the Supreme Court. Now, we're going to be asking for early admittance. We're going tomorrow, and we're going to ask for an expedited ruling because, when you look at the stock market's down today, the stock market's down because of that, because the stock market needs the tariffs. They want the tariffs.
Well, India is in dialogue with the United States for a bilateral trade agreement. That's the word that's coming in from Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal. He also hopes that things get back on track soon to conclude the BTA by fall or by November. Let's listen in to Mr. Goyal himself.
In every sense, one can see an excitement across the world to expand trading and business relations with India. We've had a little bit of a geopolitical issues overtaking trade issues in our negotiations with the United States of America. I do hope things will get back to track soon and we'll conclude a bilateral trade agreement by fall, November or so, as was discussed by our two leaders in February.
Okay, so that was Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal talking about where things stand. He's still, quite hopeful about that bilateral getting done by November or so.